Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Peah, Perek Aleph, Halacha Gimel. We're going to be learning today Daf Yud Aleph. We left off on Daf Yud Amid Beis, 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, beginning with the new Mishnah, right? Halacha Gimel. Until now, Halacha Aleph and Halacha Beis, we were discussing vis-a-vis Hilchos Peah, the amount of Peah. And as we learned that Midoraisa, there's no under limit, as there is no over limit. However, midrabanan, you have to leave a 60th. And then we learned in the previous Mishnah that actually there will be times that we will advocate for people to leave even more than the 60th. Oh, it's a 60th, you always have to leave, as we learned, the Gemara. However, there are depending on the size of your field, depending on the aniyam, whatever is more beneficial for the aniyam, it can actually be that there will be times that a person is required to leave more than a 60th. So we have been learning about the quantity. In our Mishnah, and God willing, we'll learn the whole Halacha Gimel until the next Halacha Dalet, we're going to learn the question, the discussion will be as to the location where one needs to leave this Peah. Now, just to make it clear, the word Peah means edge. Edge implies that when you harvest this field, now I know that most of us are not farmers, doesn't matter. You begin, there's a seder. You begin, let's go in what you, the farmer, consider to be the beginning of the field, where you begin to harvest, and you systematically are harvesting the field until when you come to the end or to the edge of the field. So when you learn in the Torah the dinam of Peah, it sounds like Peah should be left at the end. Lemashal, when it comes to another mitzvah for which we use the same word, Peah Sorosh, the edge. The edge of the hairline, not in the middle, not in the beginning, at the end. We're going to learn in our Mishnah, the way we will learn Pshat in the Mishnah, a 3-way machlokes tanoim, whether that's essential, or whether a farmer can choose to leave Peah anywhere in the field, and then we'll see, now that we already learned that there's the Doiraisa, any amount, midrabanan, at least the 60th, we're going to see how that will play into also this question. What's going to be fascinating, first of all, we have small dafim, so we don't have to rush through it. We're going to have the Tanakama, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda. Again, some actually learn that Rabbi Shimon is explaining the Tanakama. We're going to learn the Mishnah, 3-way machlokes tanoim. But to make things exciting, so we're going to learn in Rabbi Shimon 2 ways of understanding Rabbi Shimon. And then we'll have in the Gemara different ways of understanding Rabbi Yehuda. Different nuances in Rabbi Yehuda, but that will be the whole daf to explain these 3 shittas: Tanakama, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda, b'negeya, the location of the Peah. Okay, so let's dive right into it. Says the Mishnah, says the Tanakama, that noisnin Peah. Let's add the words even mitchilas hasadeh. You are allowed to leave Peah even if it's from the beginning. Let me clarify one thing before we read on. One thing is for sure, that Peah is something that you have to leave. In other words, the Torah says that don't fully harvest. Leave it. Leaving in the beginning doesn't mean mamash, you're leaving it in the beginning, because you can't leave Peah prior to you harvesting. Harvesting means I harvested, but I didn't harvest it all, I left something. Without any harvesting, you can't leave. So the word betchila, when you're imagining, betchila doesn't mean batchila. First of all, where is the tchila of the field? Wherever the farmer began to harvest, let's say he harvested only 5% of the field. That's what the Tanakhama is saying. And after he harvested 5%, you know what? This stock I'm leaving for the poor. That's the meaning of Batchila. Or Ume'emtsa'a. In the middle. Mamet, because in the beginning, at least it's near the edge. It's near the beginning edge. Be'emtsa'a would mean in the middle. The Tanakhama says, it doesn't have to be at the end. You have to leave something. It can be Mitchila. It can even be Me'emtsa'a. So says the Tanakhama. Let's read inside the Mahara Fulda. Okay, this is a easy Shita, Maraful the Noisten Peya, Afilu Mitchilas Hasada, or the empty Yasai. And what's the chiddush of the Tanakama? That the loy tema peya mashma usa soif hasada dafka. Peya doesn't mean dafka. Now, according to many opinions, even Tanakama, lechatchila peya means at the edge. Elama lav dafka. Lav dafka means it doesn't have to be that way. I want to use these words. In other words, peya means the edge. And like we mentioned, you cannot leave peya before any harvest. Peya is only from what you harvested. Okay, so he says that you can leave it in the beginning, you can leave it in the middle, you can leave a quarter in, 3/4 in, 2/5, 10/5. But let's go that peya means the edge. It doesn't have to mean the edge. Okay, shita number one, simple. Now Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda gets a little bit more fun. Shimon Oimer, hold on. Ubelvad, I agree with the Tanakama, but I'm adding, let's learn that he's arguing. I'm adding a prerequisite. Sheyitain basoif kashir. That you have to leave the shiur at the end. Now, what does he mean by that? So we have two ways of understanding Shitas Rab Shimon. We don't have to rush. Let's look inside the Marav folder. Right? Ubelvad sheyitain basoif kashir. Meaning, sheyaniach gam kein basoif hasada. Now that we have learned that there is the minimum midoiraisa any amount, but midrabanan you have to leave a 60th. Says Rab Shimon, I agree that if you left mitchilasa or me'emtsiyasa, dinoi kapeya, only if you will make up the 60th by leaving at the edge, at the end. Before you finish, you don't do the whole thing, you leave a little bit. Let's keep on reading. The Talmud Rab Shimon, why is that? Why wouldn't Rab Shimon say, okay, you have to leave a 60th. If you can leave it mitchilasa, like the Tanakama, leave the 60th mitchilasa. Leave the 60th in the middle. So he brings, you should know that in the Tosefta, there are 4 reasons. The Rambam brings 4 reasons. This is one of the reasons. What are the Ramoyim? Sheyoimru, anu manicham pei b'markemachet. V'yiksru kol asad v'lo yanichu klal. In other words, since if you would be told, like the Tanakam, leave midrabanan anywhere you want, at least midiavad anywhere, all of it, there might be a person that won't leave anything, but he won't have the social pressure of what happened to Peya because there isn't a place for Peya. Oh, I left it over there. I left it over here. You understand? The Tosefta gives another reason that when you leave it at the edge of the field, the edge, any edge. And by the way, like I said, the beginning is not the edge because you can't leave it in the beginning mamash. You have to begin harvesting. You want for the ani to be able to see where the Peya is. Why? Because you have to leave it to any ani. You don't get to pick which ani you want to give it to. But if you leave it in the middle, if you leave it somewhere not at the edge, so this guy will go over to his chaver the ani and tell him, listen here. He'll give him the coordinates. He'll give him the Google pin. No one else knows where to go. He'll know where to go. Masha Enkin, when you leave it at the end, everyone can see it. And there are other reasons.
What if the ani are waiting there? Are you obligated to do it faster because they're on standby?
We're going to learn, so very good. So, Kevin, we're going to learn. We're going to get to every step that you're asking we'll have in the Mishnah. In other words, we're going to go through the Seder of how it works. So you jumped ahead. Let's wait. Now, Lishna Achrina, in the Shita of Rab Shimon, this is very important, that Rab Shimon Sfirolei, that the Mido Oiraisa, Eino Yoitzimi Peya Im Lo Yaniach Besoif Kashir. Wow. That Rab Shimon holds, not Mipnei Haramoyim, there has to be something left at the end. Wow. But what's the something that has to be left at the end? The 60th. In other words, you can only leave in the middle, not there's a takana, b'pnei haramoyim, it's more than that. Rab Shimon holds that if you don't make up to the 60th at the edge, then you did not fulfill the obligation. Wow. Okay. Now, what's the third sheet of the Mishnah? Turning to Daf Yud Aleph, Rabbi Yehuda Oimer. Im shir kelach echad. If you left over even only one stalk, which midayiraisa is all you need to leave at the end, then soymach loy mishum peya, whatever it is that you left in the beginning, whatever you left in the middle, like the Tanakama that says, but the whole thing is okay. You can use that to make up the 60th. But when is it going to be used to make up the 60th? Only if you left at least one stalk at the end. Then soy mechlei mishum peya, and now you can say that I not only fulfilled peya midoraisa, I fulfilled peya midrabanan. I left the 60th. Where is the 60th? One at the edge, and everything else if it makes up to the 60th. But he speaks out clearly. But the imlav, if you did not leave at least one kalach at the edge of the field, I know the word hefker is normally spelled with a pei. Spelled here with a vase, doesn't matter, means hefker. Then that which you left in the beginning and in the middle, retroactively, is not b'chlal considered pei. So this is gaval. According to Rabbi Yehuda, none of the grains that you left in the middle or in the beginning, Danny, none of them will b'chlal get their status of peya, only if you leave at least one at the edge. Okay. In other words, Rab Shimon didn't say that. All Rab Shimon said, no matter which way you're going to learn the sheet of Rab Shimon, that you have to leave something at the edge. But he's not saying that if you did not leave it at the edge, kashir, that which you left in the middle is not payah. Especially, let's go with the first sheet of the Manaful that goes with both opinions. In other words, there's a fear that a Ramai, that's the one that he brought down, is not going to do it at all. So the Chachamim wanted for him to leave it at the edge. So the Tanakama says, lachatchili, you can leave it in the beginning, in the middle. Rab Shimon says no, that you have to leave something at the edge. But let me ask you something. And if he didn't leave it at the edge, at least that which he left in the beginning or in the middle has a din of payah. Rabbi Yehuda is the most machmir. Rabbi Yehuda says that if you do not leave at least one kelach at the edge, payah means at the edge. Elamah, the rabbinic obligation of leaving a 60th, that doesn't have to be at the edge.
How do they differentiate between what's hefker and what's peah? Somebody goes. So
I'll tell you one big nafkamina. That's a very valid question. Peah, as we learned, can only be taken by the poor. Let's go with one sheet. Peah can only be taken by the poor. Hefker, if I have something and I declare it hefker, anyone can take it. So when somebody's
walking by, how do they know?
That's the whole point. Because if someone is looking at the field
edge,
and they see someone looks today with a drone at the field, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and they see that nothing was left at the edge, and they can see where the person left payah. Since Rabbi Yehuda holds that midoiraisa payah means dafka at the edge, Elamah, he's moida that the rabbinic obligation to leave not just a little bit, to leave a 60th, that can be complemented from anywhere. But if you never left it at the edge, nothing that you left has a din of payah. Now, it's not that what you left is yours. It's not yours. You thought you're leaving it to the poor. Say the chachamim, you didn't fulfill the basic obligation. So then it's not that since you made a mistake, it's yours. No, it's hefker. Hefker means that any person can go and take it. Okay. Atkan the Mishnah, and now let's go. We're going to take apart. The Gemara beautifully. We'll explain all of this for your opinions. So the Gemara begins by quoting the words of the Tanakama that says that loisnen peyam mitchilas asada umeemtza and midrabanan yitaka have to leave a 60th. Say that Tanakama holds you can leave the whole 60th, or like we learned in the last Mishnah, sometimes you have a little field and you have a lot of aniyim, and therefore we need more. Sometimes we'll advocate to leave more than a 60th. Whatever it is you have to leave, you can leave it anyway. Okay, says the Gemara, where do we get it from? The problem with the Tanakama is that the word peah means end. Peah means edge. So how can you say that even you don't have to leave anything at the edge? So Rabbi Yosi b'Shem Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, he quotes the pasuk in Kedoshim where it says, "Uvekutzrechem es ketzir artzechem lo yisachal pa'asatcha liktzoid." Now, guys, the word liktzoid is mamish extra because the Torah says "Uvekutzrechem," when you're harvesting the ketzir artzechem, the harvest of your land, lo yisachal pa'asatcha. Don't completely harvest all the way to the edge. Of course, liktzoid. The pasuk begins with "Uvekutzrechem." So it says, since it says "Uvekutzrechem," why did the Torah have to say that in the pasuk the word liktzoid? Therefore, Taichas Shlakish, Rabbi Yosef Shem Shlakish, Afilu Yeshloi Kamo Liktzoid. The word liktzoid has a future connotation. In other words, when the Torah says Lo Yisachala Pa'asatcha, the Torah adds the word liktzoid. Liktzoid means even though you are still going to harvest more. That's clear. Now, again, we already said, to leave Peah without any harvest is not shy. You have to begin to harvest. And now, for that which you harvest, you left. So the Torah adds a word liktzoid to be mechadesh. Don't think that when you leave Peah, you are done. Even if you still have to harvest, you can leave Peah. So that's clear. That's one version of what Reish Lakish says. It was from the Lashon Asid from liktzoid. Rabbi Yoina b'Shem Reshim ben Lakish. It's very similar. I mean, you have a machloikes amoraim. What Reish Lakish says, same pasuk ubekutzrechem, same concept that liktzoid is extra, but he's not being the dayak from the future connotation of the word liktzoid. He's simply learning something from the ribui. In other words, when the Torah adds a word that is a inclusionary word, you're including. Doesn't not because it's future tense. No, same for it. Liktzoid. So it's extra, double. Achas batchila, va'achas basoiv. Bottom line is, since Tanakama holds the way we're learning, not like Rabbi Shimon, not like Rabbi Yehuda, that you can leave midoraisa and even the midrabanan anywhere, and you're completely yoitza. Even though we're saying that he's not saying that you have. It's a even if it's a b'diavad ikadin, but b'diavad you're yoitza on a biblical level and on a rabbinic level, it's from the extra liksar or from the future connotation. Okay. Now, just to make it clear that not everyone agrees with the Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold like a Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold with the Tanakama. So really, in the signet of the Bavli, the thing will be, that's a great point. In this pasuk, the word liktzoid is extra. So what will Rabbi Shimon, what will Rabbi Yehuda do with that word? That's the way the Gemara is trying to address. So therefore, the Gemara is bringing another way of teaching the liktzoid. That's going to cover the other Tanoi. Rabbi Yosef b'Shem Shimon Levi. When it says like we just mentioned, again, clear. Why does the Torah have that word liktzoid? Here comes a new topic. Let's learn today. We have time. Let's learn the Pnei Moshe. So the Torah is adding the word liktzoid to tell you that whatever type of field you have to leave Peah. Now, guys, we have to clarify a few things over here. First of all, Shmueli, a couple of rules came on just to know and we're learning the rules. A field that belongs to Hegdish is exempt from Peah. So when the Gemara says the words that there's an extra liktzoid, achas ligavoya, right? Whether the field belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, whether the field belongs to the commoner, that's not the pshat of what the Gemara could mean, because, and we're going to learn that later. We're going to learn that even if a person was magdish a field when it already had standing grain, is when the grain grew, it belonged to a hedya. If it was consecrated to the Bedek Habayis prior to the harvesting, then when the Beis Hamikdash will harvest it, you don't have to leave Peah. So that's clear, and no one is debating. So therefore, what's main Hegdish? So Chevra, where do we have, Shmuley, that you are harvesting a field for Hegdish? Where do we have that? Carbonite. So every year, right, barley is ready around springtime, around Pesach time, and that's the whole din that a person cannot eat from the new product, from the new produce, right, Chadash, prior to us, the Yidden bringing in the Beis Hamikdash on the 16th day of Nisan a carbon from the Omer. Now, the tvua is we're speaking about a field, a barley field that's being harvested for gavoya, for the oim. And I'm reading inside 4 or 5 lines in the Pnei Moshe under the Gemara. Elo the hachi ka'amad that im lokach mimois hegdish kama sode shehiru uya liktzoy. If you buy, the Beis Hamikdash is buying from a private individual the produce that will be harvested, and because the Beis Hamikdash has to buy it because it's carbon oimer is a carbon tzibur, it belongs to the tzibur. So you would think, since we just quoted this halacha, that even if higdish kama, but then upada, imagine, oimar and pater, if the field belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, you don't have to give pay. So you might have thought that since you bought the Beis Hamikdash, bought the future produce of this field for a carbon, it should be also exempted from payah. That's why the Torah writes the words liksoid over kutzrechem. And liksoid, not only if it's taka pashat ahedi, it's field, a chulandika field, are you chayiv and payah? Even if it was bought, not the field, the produce was bought for the carbon aimer, you are also chayiv. You also chayiv and payah. Chayiv, you still have to leave payah. Now we have to still clarify something. We're not done yet. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yudan, boy, he did not like to say the way we worded it. It's not good enough. Why? Klum ma'is hegdish mischalolin ela b'tolosh. Then we're speaking about someone. The Beis Hamikdash Shmuli took money from the Bedek Habayis, money from the Shkolim, and they gave it to someone for the future produce. Now you have to get technical. Very nice. That guy's product, when it will be harvested, will go to the Beis Hamikdash. But I want to know one thing. When did the ma'os, when did the kedusha of the money go into the stock, go into the stocks? When does that happen? So there's a rule that while it is still connected to the ground, that's a cloud. When you have money from the Beis, from the Bedek Habayis, in this case it's going to be from the Shkolim, you cannot change it. Not only you cannot change it on land. When the Beis Hamikdash uses holy money and they buy an item, let me tell you what happens. A side of what normally happens with that transaction, right? So if this is mine and you give me money, then this becomes yours and the money becomes mine. By the Beis Hamikdash, there's another thing over here. There's kedusha in the money, which is fine, because what happens if the Beis Hamikdash really buys your phone? What happens is the money that they give you was holy money. How can you use the money? Because the kedusha goes into the phone that now belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. That exchange never happens on real estate. It doesn't even happen on a product that's ready to be harvested. It only happens when the product is harvested. In other words, when does the real exchange happen? Even if they give the money to the farmer prior to harvesting, it doesn't go into effect. Ein mois hegdish will only be transferred to the commoner, and now the product will become consecrated, belonging to the temple, elabatolos. And the way you have to get used to the signal of the Yerushalmi. But Shema b'mechubar, do you think it happens when it's still attached to the ground? It doesn't happen when it's still attached to the ground. So in other words, the land belongs to a hedyot. Even though the Beis Hamikdash already gave the money to the owner to buy the barley, when does the transaction happen? After you harvested it. When it's still attached to the ground, it still belongs to the commoner.
Does Peyah kick in?
In other words,
kicking at the same time?
Upon who does God give the mitzvah of Peyah? That when you are harvesting your product, leave Peyah. When you are harvesting it, it's still yours. We're not challenging the din. We're asking, why did the Torah have to repeat an extra word, litzar, to be machadish echad legavaya? It's not needed. Why is it not needed? Because there's no such a thing. If the karka taka belongs to Hegdish, it's not included in the slimud because land of Hegdish is exempt from pay. So you're saying, someone is buying the barley for the Eimer, gesundheit, but the buying, the kinyan, the transference only happens after you harvest it. So again, it's not needed. When you are harvesting it, when it's connected to the ground, when do you have to? What a spider way? Pay is to leave it connected. Payah means don't harvest all of it, leave some of it in the edge or leave some of it like Tanakam in the middle. You're leaving it connected. That still belongs to the head. Why do we even need to have a limud? So Kavan is suggesting it happens at the same time. Let me remind each other rules that we have throughout the Torah Sheba'al Peh. There are many dinim in Torah Sheba'al Peh that is based on a principle that a future event already affects the present. L'mashal, kol ha'omed lisarev kesarev dami. Remember, we learned that if an esrog belongs to a avodah zarah, you can't use it. Why? Because esrog has to have a minimum shear, has to have a minimum size, and since it's avodah zarah, has to be burnt, or an asheda, it has to be destroyed. So since it's going to be destroyed, it's as if it's already burned, and therefore it's missing michtas katish yorayim. Another concept we have in halacha throughout, hazmana. Hazmana means it was designated for later for it to become holy. Halachas. When you make today a talis and tefillin bag, all these halachas. Ooh, you're already not so simple. Can you use it for your own stuff? No. Now there's nuance. I know that once you actually used it once, it has even more kedusha. But it's not about Kavan now. Since the Beis Hamikdash gave money for the product, for the barley, you're right. When is it actually mischalel? After it became disconnected. When it's connected, it's still head. Doesn't matter. Without the extra elixir, you would have thought, since it's designated for hegdish, then it should already have a din like hegdish that's exempt from payah. And for that, the Torah has to tell you the extra word. Let's read it inside. Amar Rabbi Chanina, shaloi taimar, without the extra word elixir, you should not say yei asa ketzir hegdish ketzir hedyet. Don't say that. Should we make a tzir hegdish like tzir hedyet? No, we would say that b'lashon bitmia. We would say that it's not the same. Why we would say it's not the same? Because it's already designated for kol ha'oimed hazmana. I know they're not the same. So therefore the Torah is mechadish that indeed we do say ye asa k'tzir hegdish k'tzir hedyet, and therefore you chayv and pay. But for that you have to have a limit. Okay, so at Khan we had Rish Lakish explaining two nuances, B'shitas Rish Lakish, why the Tanakama is marbe, that Peya may be left, Batchila may be left Me'emtziyasa, and what the other Tanoim will use with the word lixer. Simple. Turning to Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Now we have to cover Shitas Rab Shimon, and then we have to cover Shitas Rab Yehuda. Rab Shimon Oimer, Rab Shimon is moided to the Tanakama that yes, you may leave in the beginning, you may leave in the middle, but he holds that you have to leave at the edge as well. You have to leave at the edge as well. What's the words of Rab Shimon? Ubelvad sheyitin basoif kashir. Now we have to clarify those words. We're going to go with the first sheet and the Rashi. Knows what he's saying is that midoraisa yoyitze in the beginning. Midoraisa yoyitze in the middle. Midrabanan, we have chashal, we have fears, and they added, since you have to leave the shiur, you have to leave a 60th, you left the minimum, good for you. But you got to make up the 60th dafka at the end. So now, says the Gemara, frek the Gemara, Rishoina Mahu. What does it mean, Rishoina Mahu? Guys, let's learn the Maraful on top of the Amid, Rishoina Mahu, lit up Shimon. Ha peya shenasan b'Rishoina Mahu. But since you have to leave midrabanan the shiur at the end, you have to leave the shiur at the end, you left it at the end. Now, what will be the status of that which you left in the beginning or in the middle? What's the Gemara's question? Maybe since midrabanan, let's go mitnei haramoyim, you have to leave the shiur at the end. Maybe midrabanan, you can't even count that which you left in the beginning or in the middle. Maybe. So the Gemara says, no, that certainly is not the min. Min mandatani. Actually, look at the words in Abraisa. That elaborates the words that we have in the Mishnah. That hareizu peya, clearly. Elo mavet tzarech litin basoif kashiur. The Braisa explicitly states that yes, midrabanan, you have to leave also at the end, kashir, up until the 60th, or like we learned in the previous Mishnah again, sometimes you have to leave more than the 60th. But the words of Rab Shimon was hareizu peya. In other words, hada amra, Clearly, kacha mishum peyam. Beautiful.
Just make it up.
Not make it up. Very good. Now, okay. Says the Gemara, Mahu, when he said that you have to leave, Kashiur, now we already made it clear, what is going through very, very step by step, that which you left in the beginning and the middle, Shmuli, has a din of pay. Now let's get really, really technical. How much do you have to leave? You have to leave a 60th. A 60th of what? Of that which belongs to you. So the Gemara now is asking, Mahu, do we say Kishir Kol Sadeyu? Or only Kishir Hamishtayev? How great is that? Look inside the Rashidilio. I left what's a six? Let's make the numbers over here. So you left a little bit in the beginning. When I have to leave kashir at the edge, is it excluding that which I left? Or since midrabanan, they don't allow me to take off in the beginning or in the middle because of the ramoyim. So when it comes to the number of the 60th, I have to consider that which I left part of mine, b'negeya, I have to give from it also pay. Double dipping. In other words, Rab Shimon holds me that I say you were good. The Rabbanan says, no, you're not good. You have to leave it at the edge. And we already said, that which you left in the beginning, the middle, it's pay. You can't take it. But maybe still, that is still pay. But when I have to leave at the end, I cannot say, I don't have to count that which I left for pay. I only have to leave a 60th from the remaining. Maybe I have to give it also on it. So the Rabbanan did, from one angle, remove the din of pay. The beginning of the Gemara was maybe it's Bechlal not pay. The Rishonim is pay. But still, Rishonim is pay that you cannot keep it. You have to leave it for the poor. But still, since the Rabbanan, you have to leave it at the edge, let Rab Shimon, maybe as far as that is concerned, you have to cheshbon everything and from it give a 60th. So the Gemara says we don't say that. It's taka pay. It's really pay. You don't have to give, you don't include it in the number from which you have to give a 60th. Now that we established in the first tickle in the Gemara, quoting the Fedish from Abraisa, Harezu Peya, it is Peya. So the same Kishir Kol Sadeu can't say that. Can't get it both ways. If it's not Peya, then you have to give from it a 60th. Now that we said it's Peya, we can't say Kishir Kol Sadeu, Elo Kishir Amishtayim. Okay, so that's clear. And now, according to the way we will learn the Gemara, right, 3 lines from the bottom of the Amid, the Gemara is going to move on. B'shitas Rabbi Yehuda. What was Shitas Rabbi Yehuda? Unlike Rab Shimon, guys, biblically, I fulfilled my obligation from the middle. Biblically. With the Rabbanon, I get it. Rabbi Yehuda, the way we learn Pshat, Rabbi Yehuda learns that Peya must mean the edge. But now that the Chachamim said you have to also leave the 60th, can't be anything, Rabbi Yehuda allows for that 60th to come from the middle. Meaning, if I left something in the middle, if I left something in the beginning, if I will leave at least one stalk at the edge, so that means Midai Raisa, I left it, Peya means edge. Rabbi Yehuda also will be moida that which I took from the middle will be cheshbent in the 60th. That's okay. But if I don't leave anything in the edge, even though I left the whole 60th from the middle, or more, or less, it has a din of hefker. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Says the Gemara, there's a machlokes, like we had in the beginning of today's share. B'shitas Reish Lakish, what was his limit from Liksoid? We're going to have now a machlokes Amarayim in what Rabbi Yochanan said on the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Chia, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, says that when Rabbi Yehuda says you have to leave at least one stalk at the edge, for you then to be allowed to say that whatever else you left will be connected to that to hit the rabbinic share of 60th. What must you leave at the edge? Dafke b'mechubar. Dafke, a stalk that's attached on the ground, Shmuli, at the time of the designation. Now, what we did not yet learn, okay, like many other dinim, do you have to verbalize the designation? Like how does it work, Pei? Let's go that you have to say, I'm leaving it l'shem peah. Like what would happen if a person is harvesting? The no kavana. By the way, we're going to have a whole thing in the Gemara now. Just time to know what no kavana. A person went for a coffee break and then they forgot to go back. Did they keep the mitzvah? Did they not keep the mitzvah? Let's go that there has to be a designation. Let's go with that right now. So when Rabbi Yehuda says you have to leave one stalk at the edge, it has to be b'mechuba. When we began the Masechtas Peah, we mentioned all the way down into Allah that if a person harvested their entire field, they violated the loy sechala espa'asotcha. But they're not going to get malchus because you can make it up by now leaving by that which you harvested. And even if you went all the way down to baking of the bread, you can leave part of the bread to the poor. That's a compensation for the fact that you violate. But the mitzvah is to leave it b'mechubar. So says Rabbi Yechanan that you have to leave the one stalk b'mechubar. Meaning, if I didn't leave it b'mechubar, I cut the whole thing. Now I'm saying, I didn't leave peah at the edge. So now I want to take one stalk from the edge and say, I'm going to leave it. But Mela, everything else that I did in the middle will be connected, and that is peah. I was yotzim et rabbanan. No, Rabbi Yechanan says, you will not be yotzim. What will happen? Everything that you left in the middle has a din of hefker. You cannot harvest it. You have to now give from the Talush another 60th for Aniyim, because you did not fulfill your obligation, according to Rabbi Yehuda. The one that you leave is enough as long as it is mechubar. Now the chiddush is the next shita. Rabbi Yasa, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, is mechadesh. No, that even if you didn't leave one mechubar at the edge, you left in the middle whatever you thought you're leaving. You left 60th or almost it. You know what, Rabbi Yehuda, I have to leave one at the edge. I forgot to leave it at the edge. Okay, but now that I finished all of the edges, I'm going to take one stalk from the edge and say, this is peah. Now I want to connect it to everything that I left in the middle. It will also be good. How great is that? In other words, you can even join the betchila and the emtsiyasa even to a stalk of the edge that's now talush.
Now, if you're claiming it hefker, can't you? If you're saying it's hefker, can't you claim it as yours, and therefore it goes back to being yours?
That's a great question, Kevin. I think not. First of all, I'm not certain, but I think not. And let me go better, Kevin. Even if that's the case, that it becomes hefker, what happens if someone grabs it before I did? So you're the nosy neighbor. You're looking at the Reuven who's leaving it in the middle, and he says, I'm going to get this guy.
So
you're waiting. There,
yeah.
Let's say if we go like Rabbi, you're waiting. Yeah. And if the guy doesn't leave it at the edge, boom, you chop it. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, there's so many ways of learning it, but let's go like this. What is Rabbi Yasser talking about? Mischaven lifted esodeyu? Oy loy. What did this guy do in the middle? We're gonna kvetch this. We're gonna squeeze this into the Gemara. Did he leave a 60th? I know the word mischaven means kavana. We're gonna come back to learn another pshat in the Gemara. Is it that this guy didn't leave a 60th? Why didn't he leave a 60th? Because he was lechatchila planning to make the 60th with the one at the edge. He forgot to leave it. So Rabbi Yasser says that Rabbi Yechanan says, even though it's already talush, he from the outset was planning to include it in peah, which is why you could connect it. Or is it even more than that? Even if he left the whole 60th from the middle, that means, Danny, that he didn't even plan to leave one at the edge, which is even worse. And then he harvested everything on the edge. Still, Rabbi Yechanan is saying that if he will now, from that which is already talush, take out one stalk, talush, from one on the edge, it's going to save all of the middle ones from being hefked. It's going to make the 60th. Because you would think maybe Rabbi Yasa is so lenient, b'shem Rabbi Yechanan, that even though you are ready, it's not mechuber anymore. That's because lechatchila, you never took all the 60th. You took 60th minus one stalk. You were planning to use the one on the edge. Then you forgot to leave at the edge. So on that, the Gemara says, Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, Nishma'ina min hadam. Let's analyze the words of Rabbi Yechanan. The Amar Rabbi Yasa b'shem Rabbi Yechanan. Listen to these words. Lo oilam hu moisev v'hoylech. Now the words lo oilam hu moisev v'hoylech man nan kaiminon. If this would only, if Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Yasa b'shem Rabbi Yechanan, will only hold that you can be mitzdaref the one that's even talush, only if you never separated already the 60th. So the words v'hoylech is extra. Lo'olam hu moisef. What's the v'hoylech? If min nan kaiminon im b'mischaven lifted es sodeyo, for only speaking about a scenario where you never took the whole 60th. So then kfar niftera, it becomes exempt when you complete it by taking even one in the talush. For that, he should have said the words lo'olam hu moisef. Lo'olam, even though he already disconnected it, even though it's already talush. But why does it say the words v'hoylech? Ella ki nan kaimon. What's the v'hoylech? V'hoylech means that he's adding to the 60th, even if he never planned to leave one at the edge. Compounded with, he completely harvested the edge. So now l'chayda, everything should be hefked. Even here, we're saying that if you leave now one, even from talut, from the edge, it saves everything that you left in the middle. That pshat, which is the pshat of the Pnei Moshe, doesn't fit into the words well. So just to share one more pshat. The one more pshat is about kavan itself. The Gemara is, let's go back over here. My mischavan lifted us a day oloi. Notes, we want to know that we just mentioned. Do you have to have kavana? Do you need to have kavana when you leave payah? Nothing to do with Rabbi Yehuda. This is bachlal about payah. That I fulfill my obligation even if I didn't have kavana. And from which the Gemara is being medayik in the words of Rabbi Yechanan, but not. Rabbi Yechanan was explaining the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. This pshat will be bachlal b'negei kavana. And that is that you don't need to have kavana. You don't need to have kavana as long as now you are saying this which came from the edge is being left la'aniyim, it will have a din of payah. So, very similar to shikha. There are certain mitzvahs, shikha is even more. The mitzvahs to forget. If you know what you're doing, shikha we didn't learn about yet. But here we're saying that a person is harvesting, he had no intent to leave payah. He ended up leaving it for other reasons. Like we said, it was a coffee break. And he forgot to go back. He can always go ahead and say that which was left has a din of payah. So that's not related to Rabbi Yehuda.
All right, when you start harvesting, do you say anything at the beginning of the process or not?
We're going to see. We're going to see about that. We're going to discuss that later. In other words, even if you hold that you don't need to have kavanah, but l'chatchila you should have kavanah. So the question is, how is it that you designate? And I think there are shitas in the Rishonim that are going to say that you have to make a declaration. You have to make a declaration that this is payah for the field. A lot more to be continued.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. The sound was excellent. Everything was good.
That's good.